Hello friends, welcome back. Thank you for joining me. I think on the last video we talked about gray rock and no contact. And I kind of want to talk about how childhood trauma and dealing with narcissists or toxic people, one of the ways that it can affect our lives as a grown-up that you may be dealing with that is going to hinder your growth, your healing. It's very important. It was one of the things that it took me a few months to do it, to read the book. And I'm actually going to be starting a new series. I don't know if I'm going to put it on one of the days that I normally upload videos, or if I'm going to start putting it in the middle of the week. So I'll figure that out. But getting off of the subject, self-esteem. Self-esteem is incredibly important, especially to people who have suffered through trauma, especially people who have grown up with toxic people. We already don't care about or love ourselves as much as we need to. Some of us have no love for ourselves. And self-esteem is just so pivotal to caring about ourselves. It is, if you don't have it, you really almost can't care about yourself, because you don't see your worth. You can't see that you are worth anything. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we lose it in toxic relationships, and then I'm going to start talking about how we can get it back. And the book that I was just talking about, the new thing that I'm going to be doing, the 6 Pillars of Selfesteem by Nathaniel Branden. It's the best book that I've read on self-esteem, and I've read a few. And lately I've been doing a writing exercise that he has, and I've done it in the past. I did it for 2.5 years straight, like writing every single day. There are like writing prompts, and you write every day for a week. It goes like week by week, and you write the different things that are in the journal prompts, and it just leads to amazing breakthroughs in self-esteem. So I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about his book, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what my plan is for this new thing that I'll be doing. But let me start with how we lose our self-esteem as children who go through either emotional or physical trauma, who are raised by toxic people or narcissistic people. I'm not going to go into great detail about my story. I think I've already covered it. I will link to some of those videos if you're interested. But I was raised in a narcissistic family. None of them were officially diagnosed, of course, because narcissists don't do that. And the narcissistic diagnosis is fairly new. But from all of the research that I've done, everything that I've watched from psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists, everything, they were very, very high on the narcissistic spectrum. Some of them, I believe, only have tendencies because they were also raised by a narcissist. Some of them were full-blown narcissists. And once again, I don't specify who they were because I'm not out to hurt anybody. This is just to help other people heal who have been in similar or the same kind of circumstances that I have been. The first way that we lose self-esteem as children in traumatizing or abusive or toxic environments is that we are told that we are not worthy, or treated as though we're not worthy, whether or not we're actually specifically told you are not worthy. It doesn't really matter. If you are treated in a way that is made to feel less than, if you are treated as though you need to put somebody else first, if you are given a caretaker role for a parent or a sibling or anybody else, whoever is, taking care of you, if you are put in the position where you are taking care of that person or needing to put their needs first to get care yourself, that erodes your self-worth. It makes you feel like you don't matter. You have to make the other person matter more to survive. And we are taught to put others first. And that erodes our self-esteem because we, as children, should be taught that we are important and that we are important enough to be cared for, not to be coerced or shamed or bullied or forced into caring for, especially an adult. So we are taught that it is not safe to put ourselves first. We are either given the silent treatment or guilt tripped or any number of things into putting somebody else before our own needs. And that is detrimental to self-esteem. We can't even, you can't even fathom what you lose when somebody does that to you. It's just, it basically says, I don't matter. I don't have any worth except to put this person first and take care of them. So when you're a child and you're put into that position and you really can't do anything about it, if you're in a survival situation, which as a child you are, you just do what you can to survive. And so I I'm talking about myself here, had to put my caregiver first. And anything that I wanted or needed, well, I didn't get those things. And I was made to feel guilty for asking for them. So when you're put in that situation for years, you lose your self-esteem, you lose your self-worth. And when you do that, you are not able to pull yourself out of that place of feeling like you need to take care of somebody else. You're not able to put yourself first in a healthy way. And there are unhealthy ways to put yourself first, and that's what people mainly refer to as being selfish, where you only want for yourself and you're not willing to compromise or give. There are, I would say that the people who abused me, maybe you, were unhealthily selfish. And narcissists tend to be unhealthily selfish. So you basically never had a chance when that is done to you. It's so detrimental to children to put them in that kind of position of caretaking. Children are the ones who are supposed to be cared for. They should not be the caretakers of anyone, especially their parents, or even to an extent their siblings. It's different for, older children to help watch their siblings, but to be a very young child and be expected to take care of younger children, that's not, they should be cared for. So that is the first way that our self-esteem is eroded as children of traumatizing situations or toxic families or narcissistic families. You are expected to care for somebody, and that erodes your self-esteem. The second way that our self-esteem is eroded is not allowing us to feel our emotions. And this one is almost just as detrimental as the first. And some of us may have had one or the other. I personally had both. And if you have both, then it's definitely a double whammy for self-esteem. It basically knocks our self-esteem to zero when you're told that whatever you're feeling is wrong, or you get punished for feeling something. If you get angry and you talk back or anything like that, and you're either slapped or yelled at as a very small child, it can be devastating, because we are still, as children, exploring the world. And to be raised by people who are emotionally children themselves, or emotionally damaged, who can't deal with normal human emotions, the chances are that you never got a healthy emotional response from the person who is supposed to teach you how to be emotional. So if, say, you are highly sensitive, I am, and I tend to cry very easily. I get upset very easily. And And if you are teased or called a crybaby, or told that you are too sensitive, or any number of things that you can be told as a child for crying. And it's honestly done because they don't know how to deal with your emotion. Whether you're crying because they did something that hurt you, or whether you're crying just because something hurt you. I cried sometimes over commercials. Disney movies. I cannot do any Disney movie, any movie that has an animal in it. I will turn it off. I have been scarred for life from Disney movies and other movies with animals that they end up hurting them or killing them. No, I cannot do animal movies. And I would cry, and I know it's not real. I know, even as a child, I knew that it wasn't real. But that doesn't matter. The emotion is real, That's why they make those movies, because we're supposed to have an emotional response to them. And so, I was crying, and it was embarrassing for my caregiver. And so I was told, that it was like, it's okay. It's just a movie. It's just pretend. It's just a cartoon. That doesn't matter. It hurt me greatly, deeply, to see whatever was happening on the screen. And honestly, a better response would have been, let's not watch these kinds of movies anymore, or to go by themselves. I understand that they were taking me to a child's movie, but I don't like those kinds of movies. I never did. After the first one, I was pretty much done with those kinds of movies. But I don't know, as a child, I can make that distinction of, this movie might be sad. Even watching a preview of it, I couldn't, but I can now as an adult, and I'm sure that my caregiver could probably have figured it out, or knowing my response, maybe screened it or asked somebody else, something. But either way, even if it was done innocently, to tell me to just get over it, it's just a movie, whatever, that's not helpful to a child who is highly sensitive and very emotional. We just can't get over it. I have been trying to just get over it for 47 years, 48 years, Well, maybe not as a baby, but from at least 5. So, a good 40 years. So as a result to all of that, we stuff our feelings, which is harmful, very harmful, not only to our self-esteem, but just to our general health. Because when you stuff down emotions, you can't deal with them. And when you don't deal with them, you're going to deal with them at some point. When you don't deal with them when they're fresh, you're going to deal with them later in the form of explosions, which are not fun for anybody. The reason we are taught that our emotions are not good, bad, whatever you want to call it, is because, again, the person we were dealing with did not understand how to deal with emotions. They're working on a child level themselves. And so they're going to tell you that whatever you're feeling is wrong, bad, harmful, ignore it, yell at you, whatever their reaction is that is stopping you from feeling properly, is going to damage your self-esteem, because you're now basically understanding that a feeling is wrong. And we don't just deem the negative ones. I mean, it can happen with positive ones too, especially with narcissists, because they don't like people to be happy. They don't know how to be happy themselves, so they don't understand happiness. When you are happy, they're not. They want you to be unhappy. They can deal with that better. It's one of those phenomenons that they haven't quite figured out why narcissists do this, but it's somewhere rooted in their lack of ability to self-regulate and feel good for somebody else. So since they are always on a really low vibration and feeling really negative, if you're happy, they really want you to be unhappy because they can deal with that. And it's kind of twisted, but they will do anything that they have to get you to be feeling bad. And it's one of the ways to combat narcissism once you figure out, or a way to figure out if you're dealing with a narcissist, is to not give them that. But I'm not talking about that right now. We're talking about self-esteem. I will talk about that in another video. But so yeah, the second way of losing self-esteem is to have our emotions diminished, ridiculed, name it, yeah, to be dismissed for our emotions. So one of the third, or just another, but the third example in my top 3 is being lied to or being manipulated in a way that I would say even being gaslit especially. But manipulation, gaslighting, and lying, people lying to you, those diminish our reality. And one of our major ways of keeping self-esteem is to be in touch with our reality. So when you have somebody in a toxic or narcissistic environment, they tend to alter your reality so that you don't understand what's going on. They manipulate people and situations to get their way. So when you're told things like, that's not what I did to you, or you don't know what you're talking about, or you're just crazy, that's not what happened, any of those kinds of things, that's gaslighting. But also being lied to as children, if you know that somebody has something going on and you ask them, are you okay? Or is something wrong? And they tell you no, nothing's wrong, but you know that something is wrong. That diminishes your reality. It makes view of things skewed. And I'm guilty of doing that to people that I loved. Mainly because I didn't feel like I was worth the trouble, and because I learned how to stuff my feelings. So as you can see, a lot of things that happen to us as children, survivors of trauma, survivors of toxic environments and relationships, these things snowball and create a lot of problems in our adult lives and our adult relationships. So if you have told people, oh no, nothing's wrong, and something is wrong, they know that you're lying, for one, and it's not healthy. And I know why you're doing it. And a better way to deal with it is say, yeah, but I don't feel like it matters, or, something like that. Be honest. Being honest is the best thing that you can do. It is one of the 6 pillars of self-esteem, integrity. And it was one of the hardest for me to deal with because I came from a family that lied to each other all the time. So I didn't understand that lying was not a good thing. I thought people lied to each other because they loved each other. But those lies erode your self-esteem. The manipulation erodes your self-esteem. It makes you feel less than. It makes you feel like at a deeper level, you are not worth being told the truth. You are not able to comprehend the truth enough to be told the truth. And it does such a disservice to children, especially. And it wears away your self-esteem. For me, that was the trifecta of my 0 self-esteem for most of my life. And it was reading the book, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, that I was able to come up with those 3, top 3 things that destroyed my self-esteem. There are many, 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 many more. But to me, those were the 3 that absolutely devastated me. And they are the 3 that I have had to work the hardest on in regaining my self-esteem. Those are things that I still struggle with to this day. After 4 good solid years of working on my self-esteem, I still struggle with those 3 things, like getting past them. The feeling that I need to put others first, the lack of being able to properly express my emotions, and all of the manipulation that I went through, and the lies and the gaslighting, all 3 of those things combined destroyed my self-esteem, and I continue to struggle with it because I didn't know. I didn't know that those things were so important. But it made sense after I started reading about them. Those are 3 of our most important things that we have to build upon for our self-esteem. And I'll tell you the 3 things that they encompass, basically. The pillars that they encompass, those 3 things. The first one, the taking care of others, is self-responsibility. So when we are forced into taking care of somebody else as a child, our self-responsibility is skewed. It's taken away, and we are given the responsibility of somebody else. And that's not our job. So, self-responsibility, out the door already. Then the second one, dealing with our emotions and the eroding of our emotional state and being told that our emotions aren't right, that one destroys our self-assertiveness, because we are then taught that any emotions that we have, any feelings that we have, are wrong. They are just plain wrong. So that erodes our ability to assert ourselves in life. So now we've had our self-responsibility taken away. We've had our self-assertiveness taken away. And the third one that I touched on, that the erosion of our reality, the manipulation, all of that erodes our self-acceptance. It erodes the knowledge that we are okay. When we're manipulated and had our reality destroyed and have been lied to, it makes us not feel like we are acceptable to the world. Like we're wrong. We're wrong in some sense. And yeah, it completely destroys. It's why we go looking for acceptance of others, and that we don't need anybody's acceptance but our own. But when we are made to believe that there is something fundamentally wrong with us by being lied to and manipulated, we can't trust ourselves. We have no ability to rely on ourselves for our own well-being. So I'm going to read a couple of things from the 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. These are, the first one is beliefs about the self that support self-esteem. And they go in order, so I'll read a couple from each pillar. In general, these are my favorites. I am not here on earth to live up to someone else's expectations. My life belongs to me. And this is equally true of every other human being. Each person is the owner of his or her life. No one is here on earth to live up to my expectations. That's so incredibly important, especially to children of trauma who were made to believe that they had to live up to somebody else's expectations. We don't. We're here on earth for us, and that is it. I am competent to cope with the basic challenges of life. That's another one that you may struggle with, having to be a caregiver. When we fail as children, we are given guilt trips and made to feel less than. So that one was a really big one for me. Another one is I am enough. This does not mean that I have nothing more to learn and nowhere further to grow. It means that I have the right to primary self-acceptance. That's it. You are enough. You are enough. And if you can accept yourself as enough, you can grow. It's the conundrum of feeling like we're never enough that causes us problems and we can't grow. If you can accept your issues, if you can accept the places where you need growth, you can grow. If you can't, you never will. I have a right to make mistakes. That is one of the ways I learn. Mistakes are not ground for self-damnation. This is a big one for those of us who are people pleasers. If you're a people pleaser, I'm sorry. I'm one of those too. And we are all going to make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes always, and it's okay. That one was a close in the running for third, is being told that you can never make a mistake as a child, or being punished for making mistakes in an unreasonable way. I know we punish children for making mistakes because that's how we learn. But if you are unreasonably punished for making mistakes, or making small mistakes, or when you admit your mistakes, you're punished for admitting, there's a whole, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And it's detrimental. Okay, here's one for living consciously. I am better served by correcting my mistakes than by pretending they do not exist. There's another one on helping you get past that. That was something I suffered with greatly for most of my life. If somebody pointed out something I did wrong, I was like, nope, I never did that. They know I did it. I know I did it. But, yeah, it's a thing. And here's one from self-acceptance. I accept what I think, feel, or do is an expression of myself, at least in the moment it occurs. I am not bound by thoughts, feelings, or actions I cannot sanction, but neither do I evade their reality or pretend they are not mine. So when we are abused in the way of denying our emotions, sometimes you lie about what you're feeling to not burden others with that emotion. But if we can accept those things and realize that we're not bound by them, but feel them and let them go, we're not held hostage by them anymore. And here is my favorite one for self-responsibility. In the ultimate sense, I accept my aloneness. That is, I accept that no one is coming to make my life right, or save me, or redeem my childhood, or rescue me from the consequences of my choices and actions. In specific issues, people may help me, but no one can take over my primary responsibility for my existence. Just as no one else can breathe for me, no one else can take over any of my other basic life functions, such as earning the experience of self-efficacy and self-respect. That one is so important. If we could go back in time and give that to our primary caregivers or the people who hurt us, that's what we were dealing with. They needed to save themselves, but instead they relied on us to save them. We can't go back and change it, but we can become better people now. For self-assertiveness, in general, it is appropriate for me to express my thoughts, convictions, and feelings unless I am in a context where I judge it objectively desirable not to. So that tells us that it's good for us to say what we feel and think and believe, unless we feel like it's detrimental to ourselves to do so. Say you're in a big crowd of people who are protesting something, and you're the only person who does not believe what they're protesting. I don't know how good it would be for your safety to speak out against them if you're the only person. So that's not the best example, but it's an example. Living purposely. I serve my interests by a high degree of reality checking. That is, looking for information and feedback that bears on my beliefs, actions, and purposes. Look for your reality, see what you believe. See how much you actually believe that. See how much it is your belief or somebody else's. Check your reality. See if it even matters to you anymore. A lot of us tend to follow the crowd, but is the crowd good for you? And then personal integrity, and those are the 6 pillars. I should deal with other human beings fairly, justly, benevolently, and compassionately. That is always a good thing to do. Even if you are treated poorly, don't treat others poorly. And then here are beliefs about reality that support self-esteem. I'm just going to read one. A denial of personal accountability does not serve anyone's self-esteem, least of all the person doing the denying. So those are the 6 pillars of self-esteem. They are living consciously, self-acceptance, self-responsibility, self-assertiveness, living purposefully, and personal integrity. I'm going to go over these each in depth when I go through this book. I'm going to be reading it chapter by chapter and discussing it. And we're going to get through this. We're going to improve your self-esteem. So I will head out for now, and this is going to be an ongoing thing because that's that important to me. But I hope you learned a little bit about the things that may be tripping you up in your growth. I hope you have an amazing journey. I wish you well. Take care and bye.